In today's video, we've got to talk about Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou because Tottenham are out there actively right now looking at new managers, contacting new managers, drawing a list up of new managers. Ange Postecoglou has lost again to Wolves, who are now only 2 points behind Tottenham. And if you look at where Wolves were just a couple of months ago, that is pretty scary. They are 1 point behind Man United, and being a Manchester United fan, I know how bad Man United are, but you guys must be worse. For me, the fact that Tottenham are looking at new managers, even if Ange wins the Europa League, I think he is done. He's got these remaining games to, I say, save his job. Now, I don't want to be that person. I'm not an ITK, but I did speak to somebody that's very well connected behind the scenes, and they said to me, it's 95% that Andrew's gone. Like, they think the only way he stays is if they could not get a Glasner or a Thomas Frank or an Iriola to come in, and it was a toss-up between Ange and maybe someone like Southgate. They think that's the only way he stays. They said they don't expect him to be sacked before this Frankfurt game. I don't expect him to be sacked today or tomorrow or Wednesday, but they said him staying, very, very unlikely, even if they win the Europa League. But if he wants to stay, he's got to basically go and do something madness in all of these games and produce something great. Because it looks like Ange is done. It looks like it's finished for him. It looks like it's over for him at Tottenham. And I'm going to give my opinion on that in a second, because I do think, look, Ange has been unlucky with injuries. Tottenham keep sacking managers and it never seems to get better. They didn't really fully back him. They just brought in a lot of young players, and Tottenham need better players. They need more experienced players. He showed elements of what he could do in the start of his first season, even the start of this season. But Ange Postecoglou has totally regressed as a manager. He's losing his fans. He's losing his mind. And as someone that gave Ange a lot of benefit of the doubt at the start of the season and said, you know what, maybe Tottenham just need to stick with it, back the manager. I look at Ange now, the way he's playing, the way he's losing his head, and I just think he's pretty much done. He's pretty much done. He's pretty much over for him. He's making little mistakes. He's falling out with the fans. He's losing the fans, which I think have been incredibly patient with Ange, because I think the fans have realised, well, Levy's the biggest issue. You can change Ange, but with Levy here, are Tottenham going to fully succeed? They can get a manager in that's going to do a much better job than Ange. But if Tottenham want to be where they want to be, can they do that without change at the top? That's the big question. But you have to look at the results. You have to look at everything going on at Tottenham to decline the way they're playing and say, you know what, Ange's got a lot of his players back, 17 losses, 15th place. Let's have a look at the managers on the market. And that is what Tottenham are doing. Tottenham have been forced to put transfer plans for this summer on hold amid the uncertainty over head coach Ange Postecoglou and whether the club will be competing in Europe next season. Postecoglou is likely to be sacked if Spurs miss out on Europe and could leave the club even if he does deliver Tottenham's first trophy since 2008 and qualify for the Champions League. So, even if he misses, even if he wins the Europa League and qualifies for the Champions League, I still think he could be sacked. Tottenham are not looking at the transfer market just yet because they want to know who their manager is, and I don't think they think it will be Ange. Like, as I said, I'm not trying to be an ITK, I'm not trying to be one of those people, but I spoke to somebody that I trust that's well connected, and they said it's very unlikely. They didn't say he's being sacked, they just said very unlikely. That is the feeling, and I think that makes sense. There's a lot of uncertainty under Ange. There's a lot of uncertainty of what the budget will be, if they will be in the Champions League. So they've got to win the Europa for that. So, of course, they are putting things on hold. A little bit like Manchester United did last year when we thought Ten Hag was going to be sacked. And Ten Hag was going to be sacked. They couldn't get Thomas Tuchel. They panicked. They kept Ten Hag. It could be a very similar situation where, do you know what? I'm actually going to say it feels like the same thing. We all knew that Ten Hag was going to be sacked at the end of last season. It got leaked out that Ineos had decided to sack Ten Hag even before the FA Cup final. Ten Hag won the FA Cup final. He won that trophy, and he was still going to be sacked. But because Thomas Tuchel pulled out at the last minute, he didn't want to work with Ineos. They sort of panicked. They said, "Oh, we've been working on this Tuchel deal for 2 weeks," and they said, "You know what? He's won a trophy. Let's stick with him." It could be that kind of situation with Ange, where it's they've probably decided to sack him, but they're not going to pull that trigger until they've got that next guy lined up, even if he wins Europa League. Because it came out today. Tottenham boss Ange Postecoglou is under increasing pressure with growing belief that he could go even if Spurs win the Europa League. Marco Silva, Glasner and Iriola are the 3 names in the frame to replace him. You know what? And I don't know if he'll go to Tottenham, but Glasner, I do think suits a lot of the profiles at Tottenham really well. I think he really does suit a lot of the profiles at Tottenham really well. Um, I think that could work. Marco Silva could work. Iriola will work. They're both good managers. I will say Iriola had a lot of money spent on him at Bournemouth that people don't actually realise how much Bournemouth spent. Marco Silva's done a fantastic job. If I was going to pick two replacements for Ange, it would be Glasner and it would be Thomas Frank. Now, you've seen with Glasner at Crystal Palace. He needs a little bit of time to get it going. But yeah, I think he suits the profiles at Tottenham. I think Thomas Frank, what he's done in the Premier League, getting the best out of players, I think he has, I'd say, somewhat similar principles to Ange in terms of he likes to have that high intensity, that attack. They are probably the two names I'd pick. But even if Spurs win the Europa League, he could go. Maybe Tottenham don't want to make the mistake that Man United made with Ten Hag, kept him, then sacked him 2 months into the next season after they'd spent 200 million on him. Tottenham spending 200 million though, but you know my point. So Tottenham are exploring replacements. This has been confirmed by Romano. This isn't, Fichaeus or Caught Offside or Footy Insider saying Tottenham are looking at a new manager. These are well-connected people. Tottenham would not be looking at a new manager for no reason. They clearly have plans in place to replace Ange and have strongly discussed that Ange might need to go. That doesn't mean they will sack Ange, but they're exploring the market to see if there's someone they think is a better option than Ange. And if that someone wants to come to Tottenham, I believe Ange will go. They've got Iriola, but will they want to pay 10 to 11 million? Will Iriola want to leave Bournemouth for Tottenham? Because Tottenham are a little bit like Man United. We are a manager graveyard. I'm a Man United fan. I look at managers and I think, oh, you're taking such a risk coming to Man United. And I feel the same with Tottenham. Just doesn't seem to work well. You don't scout replacements for Ange. You don't scout Marco Silva, Iriola, Glasner, Thomas Frank. Oh, pardon me, just sneezed there. You don't scout managers and look at managers unless you're thinking about sacking Ange and strongly thinking of it, because they're preparing for the summer. They've got to do this due diligence now, so when they pull the trigger on Ange, he's gone. Now, there is a lot of talk that Ange could be sacked today, Ange could be sacked tomorrow, but it's not reliable talk. It's not from reliable people. I don't think Ange is going to be sacked and someone like Ryan Mason's going to be brought in. I think Tottenham thought, what's the point in sacking him now? Even though you've got the Europa League and maybe there's another manager out there that could do a better job in this Frankfurt game, I think Tottenham are very much like, we might as well just wait until the end of the season and get rid. I think that is Tottenham's stance. I don't think he's going to be sacked mid-season. Even if you lose to Frankfurt and get knocked out, I don't think he's going to be sacked next week. I think it's going to be an end of the season thing. And I think you're looking at long-term managers for the end of the season. Maybe you have someone to do the final few games, but you're not going to get relegated. So I don't know. But Romano said that Tottenham are exploring the manager market. He confirmed, interest in Iriola, the release clause, and he will be an immediate candidate if Spurs change manager. He's highly rated. When Romano is confirming, a little bit like last season with Ten Hag and Man United, that they're looking at a new manager, that's because, as I said, I think Ange is done. I think he is gone. Iriola is one of the managers Tottenham appreciate the most. Though so far there's no direct talks, but Iriola's close circle have been informed of Tottenham's appreciation. And obviously the release clause was mentioned. And Spurs are aware of that, but Bournemouth obviously don't want to lose him, which makes sense. It was also said by Romano that they will monitor the situation of sort of Silva, who people in the industry think is ready to take on the new challenge. I think Marco Silva is more likely to take on the Tottenham job than Iriola as of now. I think he's more interested in that kind of job. That was also said by Romano. It was also said, unless Tottenham win the Europa League, there's a strong concrete possibility that Ange will be placed at the end of the season. But we've also got sources coming out now basically saying even if he wins the Europa League, he could still go. He could still go. I massively believe, and this is again from the person I spoke to and looking at what happened at Man United, that Ange going depends on the replacements available that Tottenham can attract. There's people they want that are good replacements available, but will those people they want to come to Tottenham? Can they strike a deal? Because Daniel Levy doesn't give managers a lot of money. So lots of managers might be saying, well, I don't want to work with Daniel Levy, who is the bigger problem than Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham. Now, I think Ange knows it's over. I strongly think that Ange knows it's over. He knows it's gone at the end of the season. I'm going to explain why. He's starting to say things in his press conferences where he's kind of calling out the people above him. And that's what managers do when they know it's near the end, when they want to save face for their next job. They know that they're probably going to go. So they start, putting digs at the people above them so they can save face and say, look, you know what, this guy did not back me, make their PR look better. I think he said, I've almost lasted 2 years, which is pretty good for Tottenham. He's starting to basically admit that Tottenham is a graveyard for managers. And I think for me, that's a sarcastic dig that not secure manager says. If you're secure within your job, you don't make digs or little things at the people above you. I think that's a dig at Levy. I think that's a dig at Tottenham. And I think that's well, just to let you know, I'm at Tottenham. This doesn't make me a bad manager because I'm at Tottenham. That's what I look at it like. But you look at this, it is worrying. In the last 15 years, his points per game is 1.57. I mean, I do think a big reason why Man United and Tottenham are where they are is because the Bournemouths, the Villas, the Fulhams, the Brightons, the money that those clubs have spent, the Newcastles, and how much better they are than Nottingham Forest. There's a lot more competition in the Premier League. You look at why for 2 seasons in a row, the promoted teams are going straight back down because the quality in the middle of the Premier League is so much better than it used to be. But I look at it, if Southampton and Leicester are the only teams that have lost more away games than Tottenham this season, and they are absolutely dreadful, although Tottenham did give Leicester one of their wins, and only the bottom three have conceded more chances than Spurs, it just shows the mess there is. Because Romero, obviously I know he's been injured, one of the best centre-backs in the world. Same with Mickey van der Ven. Archie Gray's a very good player. Danzo's solid. You have good players in defence, I think. I think you need a DM. I think you need another fullback on the left side for depth. I think you need a top winger, and I think you need a backup to Solanke, who's dropped off a bit, but I think that's because he's not fully fit. But I look at Tottenham now, and your whole squad recently has been fit, except Kulu, in terms of players that can play. Most of your squad's been fit lately, other than Kulu, and you're still losing, and you're still playing bad, and it's not convincing. And while there was some decent patterns to play versus Wolves, you did lose and concede 4 goals to Wolves, which a lot of it is on players and players making errors and players making mistakes. And that's not necessarily Ange Postecoglou's fault, that there's a lack of quality there. That is the people above Ange's fault. But the decline in Tottenham in general, some of it has to go onto Ange. And it feels a little bit like Ten Hag deja vu with Ange. Second season, it's dropping off. Is it the players? Yes. Is it the people at the top of the club? Yes. But is it Ange as well? A little bit, yes. It's all 3 of them. It's not you take Ange out of the equation and Tottenham are good again. You need to change the players. You need to change how you operate at the top. And you might need to change the manager. Now, I still think you look at Bergvall development, you look at Archie Gray development, you look at the youth at Tottenham. I think there's elements of Ange getting 4 really good signings in the summer and Tottenham looking very different with time. I do. I think that if Ange wasn't sacked, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's just a massive risk. It's a massive risk because I feel like the dressing room and the fans have sort of had it with Ange in that sense of it will be really difficult for him to win the dressing room back. That's what I think. Ange said this. At some point, I think the club needs to stick to something. If I say it now, it sounds self-serving and defeats the purpose. So maybe not now. But I think if you want to change the course of your events, you need to change the materially a lot of things in terms of the way you outlook the club. I think it's Ange. I feel like he knows he's probably going to go. He's now saying these things that Tottenham can't just keep sacking managers and think their problems are going to be fixed because they need to improve the squad. They need to improve the people above the manager. I think Ange is absolutely right in what he says, but he's saying it now. And he's saying things like, "Oh, I've lasted 2 years. That's good for a Tottenham manager." He's saying this kind of stuff because he's trying to maybe buy time for himself. Who knows? But I think Ange, I feel like the way he is in his press conferences now, because he was so likable when he first came in and the media were loving him. But he's really, you can see he's stressed. Tottenham have done it to him. You can see he's stressed. So anyway, that was just my thoughts on Tottenham and the Ange Postecoglou situation. I didn't actually watch a lot of the Wolves game. I saw more of the highlights. But look, as someone that was giving Ange patience from a Man United fan perspective and feeling a bit sorry for Ange because I don't think that those above him have treated him the best and he's had a lot of injuries. So someone that has been, I think, quite lenient in my opinions on Ange as a neutral. I do think I look at Ange and look at Tottenham right now, and I do think he's probably got to go. If you can get Thomas Frank, if you can get Glasner, I would sack Ange for that. I wouldn't sack Ange for Southgate, but I'd sack Ange for a few managers out there. And from my perspective, as someone that said earlier in the season that you should give Ange time, I do think that this is time now for Tottenham to move on. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. Bye.